So our first speaker tonight is Breanna Tauschek. The DeVeber Institute has published two significantly lengthy and detailed books recently. One is Complications, and the full title for Complications is Abortion's Impact on Women. The second book that we have published lately is It's Not That Simple, Euthanasia and Assisted Suicide in Canada. Breanna's research focused on two of the sections in Complications, specifically dealing with gender-based abortion and also on women's mortality. So her research was bringing up to date these subject areas that are covered in Complications. And Breanna is presently finishing her teaching degree at the University of Windsor, and she's a graduate of her BA studies at Western University in Ontario. Breanna, thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you for that kind introduction, Martha. All right, I'm just going to start sharing my screen here. All right. So hello and welcome everybody. As Martha said, my name's Breanna Tauschek, and I have a degree in English language and literature and creative writing from University of Western Ontario, and I'm currently in my final year of Teachers College. So I was one of the summer research associates for the DeVeber Institute. I worked under the supervision of Ian Gentles to gather information on sex selection abortion, and I also investigated the claim that abortion lowers maternal mortality. So let's look at the context of sex selection abortion and women's issues in China and India. So sex ratio at birth in China and India. So a normal sex ratio at birth, or SRB, is approximately 105 males per 100 females. In 2019, the estimated SRB in China was 113 boys per 100 girls. While this is still a drop from its peak in 2005, this is more than it was in 2017. In 2016, the SRB for India was 877 females for every 1,000 males. So this means that in 2016, there were 12.3% less females being born per 1,000 than males. So moving over to China and the impact of the 1 and 2 child policies. In 2019, there have been almost 400 million reported abortions performed in China since the advent of the one-child policy. Sex-selective abortion of females is a huge problem in China due to traditional son preference. This has only been aggravated by the 1 and 2 child policies. While government programs such as the All China Women's Federation for Nanchuan had been encouraging and even forcing women to have abortions for years, these organizations have shifted to urging women to have 2 children. However, the changing economy, the normalization of abortion in single-child households, and societal pressure on parents to pay thousands for extra classes and tools to help their children succeed has resulted in a continuing aging crisis. It is projected that 17.1% of the population of China will be over 65 by 2030. Between now and 2028, it is predicted that there will be a 40% decrease, which is nearly half, in the number of Chinese women between the ages of 23 and 30, and only 8 million total births per year. In 2019, births dropped to just 14.6 million, which is the lowest number recorded in a single year since 1961. So we'll look at women's health in India. In 2017, for children ages 1 to 4 in India, it was found that disease-related deaths were higher for girls. Natural factors alone could not account for this. Data suggests that attitudes about women and girls have led to health outcomes for females. They are less likely to be breastfed by their mothers, are given poor diets than their male counterparts, are less likely to be given medical treatment, and there's evidence of mothers taking better care of themselves overall when they know they are pregnant with a boy. In 2017, the female to male mortality for children ages 0 to 4 was higher for females than males, meaning that females were more likely to die in early childhood than males. So for cultural attitudes in Vietnam and India, Hang notes that in studying trends in Vietnam, government bans against sex-selective practices have been difficult to enforce, as it is easy for parents to lie about why they want to have an abortion. And a 2017 CNN article further proves that simply banning sex selection abortion does not work without strict, consistent enforcement and government and social efforts to change cultural attitudes. So this article details the operation of a group of female activists who go undercover at hospitals and clinics in India to prove how widespread sex selection is still practiced and to have doctors who engage in such practices arrested. One thing that has caused sex selection abortion to continue in India is the fact that although dowry payments were outlawed in India in 1961, they still persist in certain areas. This results in females having a lower status than males because they are costing their parents money. So this perpetuates son preference that leads to more sex selection abortion. And widespread sex selection abortion has led to India's highly skewed sex ratio at birth. So the net reproductive rate, or NRR, is the number of surviving daughters per woman. In China, the current number of 0.796 is less than needed to replace the female population. This number is not predicted to reach replacement rate this century. Canada's projections for 2095 to 2100 are even worse than China's, with an expected NRR of just 0.83. Very few countries are expected to reach replacement rate by 2100. And while there are other factors, it can be assumed that sex selection abortion and abortion as a whole are contributing to this, especially in countries like Canada, where abortion is available on demand. So let's look at the number of missing women, a global perspective. So just to give some context for how I arrived at these numbers, as of 2018, according to Kumar and Sina, 1.8 million girls under the age of 5 go missing due to sex-selective practices every year. According to Bongars and Gayamoto, an estimated 126 million women and girls were missing in 2010, with an estimated rate of 1.8 million going missing every year due to excess deaths and an additional 1.7 million due to prenatal sex-selective practices. So if we add these two numbers together, that is a total of 3.5 million women and girls going missing every year. However, the 2012 World Development Report had an estimated 3.9 million women and girls under the age of 60 going missing every year due to sex selection practices and excess female mortality. So Klassen and Wink predict the number of missing women in absolute terms in 2002 was somewhere between 65 and 110 million. So if we take the 2002 estimate from Klassen and Wink and the lower estimate of an additional 3.5 million going missing every year, then by 2010, there would have been between 127,500,000 and 131 million missing women, which fits roughly with Bongars and Gayamoto's estimate. On the higher end, if we take the estimate of 3.9 million provided by the 2012 World Development Report and apply it to Klassen and Wink's 2002 estimate, the number of missing women in 2010 would have been roughly between 129,900,000 and 133,400,000. This would mean that in 2020, there would be somewhere between 161 million and 172,400,000 estimated missing women. However, it's possible that this number is much higher, as instances of female abandonment, infanticide, and sex selection are likely underreported to avoid violating laws against these practices. So switching over now into maternal mortality. So we're going to look at the example of Chile, which has very restrictive abortion laws and also low maternal mortality. So in 2017, Chile's maternal mortality, or MMR, was less than the USA, with the former having 13 deaths per 100 live births and the latter having 19. So this is a slight continued decrease from 2009 on, despite the fact that in 2017, the already restrictive abortion laws in Chile became even more restricted with the expansion of conscientious objection rights to include entire private healthcare institutions. Further, it is still very difficult to get an abortion in Chile due to lack of knowledge of the law, private clinics insisting on showing women their ultrasounds, and lots of documentation required to be transferred to a hospital that will perform the procedure. Despite this, in 2017, Chile was in the top 12 for the lowest MMR in the world if we're counting the number of deaths. So moving over to South Africa now. While the abortion law in South Africa is very liberal, it is still difficult to obtain an abortion due to lack of information and low socioeconomic status. Further, many doctors invoke conscientious objection rights due to stigma and overwork. Because of this, there are still many illegal abortions that happen. And after the legalization of abortion in 1996, the maternal mortality in South Africa rose sharply, peaking from 2005 to 2006 with 201 deaths per 100,000 live births. However, in 2007 through the 2010s, it began to decline, being 119 deaths per 100,000 live births in 2017. So clearly, abortion cannot explain the sudden decline in MMR in South Africa. So we have to ask ourselves what changed in 2007. One answer is that this is when the South African government's ART program, which was created to combat the HIV/AIDS epidemic, began to see results. Its effects started to be seen in 2007 with a continuous decline in HIV/AIDS-related deaths. This correlates to when the decline in the MMR started after its peak in 2005 to 06. So finally, we're going to turn to Poland. Poland has one of the strictest abortion laws in Europe. Abortion is only legal in cases of rape, incest, serious malformation of the fetus, and if the pregnancy poses a serious health risk to the mother, as attested to by 2 physicians. In 2017, there was a credible movement to ban abortion altogether in Poland that made it all the way to the Polish parliament before ultimately being struck down. Recently, Poland has proposed another bill, which, if passed, would outlaw abortion in the case of severe and/or fatal fetal impairment. Despite this, Poland has a lower maternal mortality than Canada, which has abortion on demand. In fact, it is tied with Belarus, Italy, and Norway for the lowest maternal mortality in the world, having just 2 deaths per 100,000 live births. So for some concluding thoughts, one thing that was consistent throughout all of my research was the negative impact of abortion on women. Son preference in China and India have resulted in the deaths of millions of preborn girls and a mistreatment of women across the board. The one-child policy in China has resulted in a huge shortage of women and girls, as son preference there still persists. In India, the impact of dowries and son preference has resulted in an increase in sex-selective abortion and the continued mistreatment of women. There are over 100 million missing women and girls worldwide today. Abortion does not have the positive impact on women's health that its proponents complain, as demonstrated by the countries that I mentioned. But what it does do, however, is ensure that there are less women in the world than there should be. So thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you, Breanna. Thank you also for your very reflective ending that helped put into perspective what we learned from this research. And it made me think of Feminists for Life expression that says women deserve better than abortion. And I think to speak up for women's rights and to have this research to bolster that is very helpful for all of us. Thank you for your work and for your passion in presenting it tonight. Thank you very much.